What up, what up, what up? It is the Shark Cove episode 22. I don't know who's keeping count, though. I just went back from 15 and added where we're at. I don't know if rebroadcast count as an additional episode. I don't think that they do. Nevertheless, we're here, in the middle of what is a very busy time for LOL DFS, especially on a super week. So I hope people had some good days yesterday. I did not. Luckily, the NASCAR Truck Series has been very, very kind to me. Not so much the Xfinity today, but we did pull a profit in LCS. So at least there's that, because we certainly didn't in LEC and, didn't in LPL last night. So we're going to try and correct that today. We're going to try and take a look at the slate. It's a kind of a banger. I don't know what the pricing looks like, but let's get right into it. Let's go ahead and bring this up. There we go. It's probably a little bit too small for you guys. Let's bring me down to here. And we are at 175. That's probably too big. I'm going to go 165. Yeah, that's fine. We'll go one by one. All right, so we start the day off with a pretty fantastic matchup. We've been a little bit lucky, I think, in terms of the 2:00 game being one that's worthwhile for staying up to watch. I guess maybe we're not lucky because we're staying up to watch this, and I know that my sleep has certainly been affected. And for whatever reason, the LEC on Saturdays, super boring, not a lot of kills. It's certainly not a Friday day. That's for sure. Sorry, I was just reading something. But what we've got is we've got Victory 5 versus Up, Ultra Prime. We've got Victory 5 as minus 700 favorite. Look, I know that they just lost the other day. They lost to JDG. Up is an up-tempo team, a team that really will push the pace. And that's the type of team that I think that can pose some problems even for some of the better teams. However, I just don't think that this Up team is very good. They're not nearly they're a worse version of JDG. They do have Elk and they do have Cryan, but and Chelsea's good too. It's like, look, there's a lot of pieces here, but for some reason, whether it's how they fight at objectives, just being brain dead, just making the wrong moves, they have not been able to knock off any good teams of significance. And in fact, in most of their losses, they're giving up a ton of deaths, and they're going up against a Victory 5 team that in wins is, getting right around 20 kills per win. Pretty consistently when we look at what this team does, do we find them getting these like high massive kill games? So let's take a look. Again, I don't know if I don't have some of this updated, but just with the small sample that we have on here, we can see that Victory 5 is a team that's going to give just a ton of deaths. And I hate this little thing. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't do that. But so they're gonna get a bunch of kills. There's gonna be a bunch of kills that they give up too. This team likes to skirmish, and when we go to Up, it's the same type of deal. They give up about 20 kills in each one of their losses. They like to fight. There's just a lot of action going on. Unlike the game last night where we could totally see Weibo, failing in the spot that they were in. I have a harder time believing that Victory 5 is not, not viable for a optimal stack tonight. They're going to be super popular. Again, I don't know how they fit. We'll take a look at that. But I feel pretty confident that Victory 5 is going to come out with this game. If you're in the larger GPPs, obviously Up is a team that you can play. But I'm probably not going to find my way to very much Up in some of the larger entry tournaments or larger stake tournaments. LSB and DRX, this is a game that's a little bit closer. I mean, we have a couple games on this slate that are just massive favorites and massive dogs. We have a couple that are closer. And this one, even though LSB, the Sandbox Sand Sharks are plus 200, it's one of the better spots that we have. The problem is I just don't have them projected for a heck of a lot. And the same thing can be said about DRX. And this isn't your typical like 15 or 16. I guess in Sandbox case, it kind of is. But when we're talking about DRX, I only have them projected for 30 kills. They were optimal the other day. We talk about going to the cookie jar one too many times, and I think going to DRX may be something like that. Again, don't know how the prices are going to kind of work out. OMG and RA, I believe that's actually, it might be the last game or might be the third game, but nevertheless, this is a game that I think is going to be highly targeted just because it makes a lot of sense. I just talked about that LSB DRX game and that not being a place that people are going to want to go. We say it time in and time out, like people just don't want to play the LCK, despite Bro being in the optimal yesterday. KDF kind of dropping the ball. They were on their way to being a very good scoring team, but just couldn't close out that series. Now, OMG, this is a team that people were in love with earlier in the year, and they typically hold their own against teams that are not like the top tier teams. Yeah, they have a hard time playing against teams like Weibo, like LNG, like Victory 5, EDG, but RA is definitely a step below that. And that's not to say that I don't think that RA is not a good play. We'll just have to see how it kind of goes. This one's pretty close to me to a coin flip. I can very easily see OMG winning, and I can see even the losing team in this series being optimal, having just a smash spot, a kind of a skirmish heavy loss, and then it works out for me. Then we have T1, the biggest favorite on the slate, minus 1,200 going against KT. They don't project super high, but they're not that far off of some of these LPL teams. So I've got T1 about 17 kills in a win over KT, somewhere between like 15 and 19. So it just comes out to 34 over a 2-game set. Whereas, RA is at 36, OMG is at 35. Definitely this game, you're seeing a higher number. And then this last game with LNG and Top Esports, we definitely see a little bit of a higher number, but it's not that far off. So I think the secret's out. The cat's out of the bag. People want to play T1. I just like they've lost a couple of games, but they haven't lost to teams like KT. And, again, we talked about it the other night when KT was on the slate. At one point, we thought this team was going to be maybe good, maybe kind of like the next best or the best of the next. And since that point, they have just been really bad. I think DRX is closer to that at this point than KT is, and KT has just been abysmal. So I would be very surprised if they beat T1, who I think is pretty motivated to have a undefeated split here. So I expect him to come and take care of business. Shout out to Bro for sure. Hey, I know it made some people some money. I unfortunately didn't have the right combos in the contest, but it did save my day. I can't complain about that. You did remind me I got to reserve some of these contests here just before anything happens. Let's take a look at this one. Yeah, I don't want to. I think I'm going to have to play some of these people anyway. Let's grab this one. Cool. That's all we necessarily need for right now. So then LNG and Top Esports. This is kind of like that EDG RNG game yesterday. Do we buy into Top Esports and this resurgence? Like we knew at one point, or we thought at one point, that this team was going to be good. Hell, if you look at my best ball teams, I thought that they were going to be really good. They looked great in the offseason. I thought the acquisitions that they made were going to pay dividends for them, and it just hasn't. Like this team looked lost for a while. Now they're back to wayward with Tyon and Mark, and this trio around Knight and Jackie Love seems to have breathed a little bit of life into the team. They've got a couple wins, but this is going to be one of their bigger tests. And it feels like the games that they have won against better competition have been somewhat lucky. So let's see. Do you think DRX will be owned at all because of the last slate? Because LSB, look, I think that they will have some ownership, but like not a ton. It just goes back to that whole LCK bias that people have. And I mean, just look at my projections for them. It's not just bias in their case. They're legitimately some bad scores. And I just don't know if they're necessary. Let's go ahead and actually take a look at that and see how that works. Which one is it? Is it this one? No, that one's old one. There we go. So let's take a look and see how these teams stack up. Thankfully, everybody in the player pool is in the player pool, so we can go ahead and include that. So from a cash perspective, we'll get to the DRX part. But let's take a look at from a cash perspective. If we're playing Victory 5, we, of course, if you're using this optimizer, want to go ahead and put this down to 80. Let's change this to ceiling. Let's see what we can do. Victory 5 with LNG. I'm going to guess that you should be able to do this. That's not as good as I thought you would be able to, but okay. We have some options there. We're looking at favorites. So can we do this? Yeah, I mean, that looks super attractive right there. What can we do with the other favorites? I know. People don't like iBoy Captain, but look, you're getting 2 favorites, albeit not a huge favorite, but still a favorite in RA. And you're getting a carry captain. That's nice. That's a nice way to look at it. I don't think that we'll be able to do this. I mean, for heads up, this is probably a similar lineup to what I would run. What do the team slots look like? Yeah. I mean, this is fine for heads up or head to heads. Just hope somebody else tries to, figure out whether it's going to be OMG or RA or LNG and TS, and they get it wrong. That's a good safe lineup there. Pretty good for double ups. But again, when we talk about that type of lineup, you need to be consistently playing that style, and you need to be playing, a lot of exposure. You need to be playing the same every single night, and that's part of the process to make that successful. There's a little bit of a cash discussion in the other sports channel if you want to go check it out if you haven't already. Let's see here. RA line seems bizarre. Yeah, I mean, what seems bizarre about it? When we look at kind of the statistics, RA grades out. I mean, are you saying that you think RA should be a bigger favorite than what they are, or are you saying that you think OMG should be a favorite? Because I mean, at -170, I think that's a pretty fair number. I don't know if I would put it any higher, just given the full body of work. I mean, if you probably took the first 3 or 4 weeks out of it, RA's number probably looks a lot higher. And then, of course, the same token, OMGs will look a lot worse as well. But again, we talk about this. Sometimes there are just teams that have a good grip of the meta early and playing well. But as teams start to catch up, they kind of fall behind. We've seen it multiple times with different teams in different years. LNG comes to mind from last year. I think FPX might be a victim of it, and maybe OMG is, or maybe they just went through an easy part of their schedule and they're a completely fraudulent team, or they're in this level of RA. But I don't know. I just think RA is probably a little bit above them, and I think the line is pretty indicative of that. So you're thinking that they should be 250? Well, look, at -250, are you telling me that's what, 65, 70%, somewhere in that range, 67%? I'm not sure the exact number. So you're thinking that they should win 7 out of 10 times? I don't know. I think OMG's coin flippy enough that the odds are pretty close to where I would feel comfortable with them. I get what you're saying, though. The only thing is with RA. Let's see. What can you do with RA and T1 in cash? Yeah, you know what? I'll be honest. I really like this lineup right here. So iBoy has been playing a lot better recently. He's been getting a lot more fantasy points from just the whole fantasy perspective. OMG is a team that does die a lot in their losses. Cube is a guy that has pretty high, and maybe he's got the highest kill participation in terms of top laners in wins. Owner's been a baller, and Strive has been fantastic too. earlier in the season, we wanted to leave Gumiasi out of it, but as the season progressed and we got a bigger sample size and things started to normalize, we definitely saw him start to ascend and be the primary carry and the guy that's scoring the most points on T1. So I like this lineup, but I mean, like I said, you can do the same thing with Victory 5. This is 603.90, and we're at 614 here. So I think the Victory 5 one feels a little bit better, feels like it has a similar floor and just a little bit more of an upside. I guess if I had to pick a team that's going to lose, I mean, as the odds would indicate, Victory 5 just showed us that they can throw even some majorly hard, like they can throw hard. Like it can be a situation where they shouldn't lose. There's nothing that they can do to lose except for this like one series of events, and they can do it 2 games in a row. So that's kind of what you're getting with that. So I wouldn't say that they have the higher ceiling. They have kind of the lower floor because I think that Up has more talent than KT. Both of them are going to revolve around their ADC and whether they can take over those games, though. Just curious. When we're looking at all of these teams, how do these prices work out? T1's the highest, Victory 5, LNG. Yeah, I mean, like RA, OMG. RA is just going to be popular in cash. I think that they're going to be popular in GPPs. They're just that team that kind of fits with everything, and OMG is going to be the same way. Yeah, dude, fuck Astralis. I'm right there with you. I guess in retrospect, 2020 is, obviously, or hindsight is 2020. Mad Lions doesn't die a ton recently in losses, and I guess we forgot that they were good. So, yeah, I was way overexposed to that. I don't think that the line is going to change from recency bias because those lines are not necessarily done by somebody's just their opinion. They're more mathematically influenced. What I will tell you is that RA ownership is going to be influenced by that recency bias. I think that's what's going to happen. So no, going back to the original question, I'm not thinking that DRX sandbox game is owned at all. And I'm sure that you can go ahead and you can probably fit DRX with anybody if you want. I mean, like, look, when it comes to these 5-game slates, we talk about wanting to go ahead and attack a dog and in GPPs play a dog. But like, if you have a really low owned favorite, it might as well be a dog. You can get the slates where all the favorites win. Look at the LCS today. But if you can get one of those teams that's just off, I mean, out of all the favorites, DRX is probably the lowest owned, but you can't fit them with Victory 5, really? Yeah, they're a little bit more expensive. That's interesting. Let's try something here. So you're telling me I can't even fit it with like Karsa Captain? Yeah, they're not going to be owned at all. I mean, I guess if you're playing what DRX, you're probably playing them with something like OMG or something. Oh, my bad. Let's take a look here. Yeah, you're probably playing something like this if you're playing DRX. You're playing them with OMG. You're playing them with RA. I don't hate it. Def does score a ton. You get all the good pieces of RA by doing this. You are left with barrel. So, you got a ton of salary here if you want to go ahead and just get rid of this and then throw like a T1 team on there. That's more of a GPP, not necessarily a cash. Let's see. Tess or LNG? That's a tough question. Let's see. Let's take a look at their recent matches. So when we look at who they've recently played and how they're performing, LNG, they dropped that game to TT. They lost the series to Weibo. They lost the series to Victory 5. They're on this downward trajectory. I wonder if people stay away from them based off of that. So, just looking at what they've done, they dropped a game to TT. They dropped a game to Anyone's Legend. They dropped a series to RNG, to Victory 5, to Weibo. We think that those are good teams. We feel like they're good teams. So far, they've been good teams. The question is, where does Test fall into all of this? I think that they fall into kind of a category that's in between. Obviously, Anyone's Legend and TT, they're better than those teams, but they're maybe not as good as like an RNG, a Victory 5, or Weibo. Where they kind of fall between those, probably closer to the later than the former. And, just looking at what Top has done recently, beat BLG 2-1, beat FPX 2-1, beat EDG 2-1, JDG, TT. I mean, they've been on a roll. Maybe Test should be the favorite here. I think it's just the fashion in which they did it. And they're priced like the dog. I think Top's going to be pretty popular too. What can you do with these teams here? Colby versus Masvidal. I think Colby wins, but I want Masvidal to win. I don't think anybody wants Colby to win, right? I mean, there are a couple fans, but even if it came down to like winning a couple $1,000 if Colby won, if he got knocked out, it would be like I'd pay $5,000 for that, right? So I think that would be okay. Getting back on track with this, yeah, I think Top's going to be super popular. In fact, man, I don't know. So let's see, what can you do with this? Jesus. I guess the question that I have to ask myself is that with Victory 5 being in this absolutely like nut spot, like you really couldn't ask for a better team to play. Like LGD up, like those are the teams that you want to play, right? Like you want to target teams playing that. And you want to target Victory 5 whenever they're playing. You can now pair Victory 5 and GPPs with RA, who's playing OMG, a team that you want to target, Top, who is a team that people just love to play. And I think T1 kind of goes a little bit by the wayside as a result. Certainly if we play this slate out 1,000 times, Victory 5 outscores T1, a vast majority of those, but there's enough that I think T1 comes in and is the highest scoring team on the slate. They're expensive, and I suspect the LCK bias, even though it's not totally in that T1 kind of, or at least T1 is not as subject to that bias towards the end of the season, being that they're undefeated. Still an LCK team. Victory 5 still there. You can't play Victory 5 with T1. I think T1's going to go under own versus what their actual ceiling is. Something like this with like a Jackie Love captain, or like even a Gumi, like something like this. I like that. I think that's a good kind of combo there. And we've already explored the iBoy. There are a couple nice little combos here. V5 sneaky in the 3-3-3. Look, man, you just play the teams that score the most, and Victory 5 could score the most, and so you play them. We'll know about by 230, 245. You maybe want to play at least one Victory 5 lineup, so after they drop 25 in the first game, you're not drawing dead on the rest of the night, or maybe that's what you want. I don't know. Let's take a look at some other chats. Yes, Bell. That's who Kobe is. Top's price is super enticing. I would agree with that. Test will be more popular than LNG. 100%. When you look at what you can do with LNG, I mean, you're getting jungle captains with some of the bigger favorites. So LNG is still very playable. You could do even something like this, I think. And it's just a tough day to go to the LCK today. This might be a time where I step back and, I temper it. T1, I think, is an exception, but I'm just having a hard time going to that sandbox DRX game and finding the scenarios where that ends up in the optimal. Maybe Will can tell me, should we be playing it? He runs a little algorithm, tells us what's the deal on that. T1's been a saving. Yeah, they've been all year, man, all year. LCK night, no, I mean, maybe not. They will be lower on, but they're. So I think they're probably like 10 to 15%, maybe. Well, I mean, in relative to like Victory 5 should be probably 30 to 50% in the 333. Obviously, that number in the 15 will be much lower. But in the 333, I think they're going to have overwhelming ownership. It's just a matter of how these other teams play out. The saving grace tonight is that there are, like, I think 6 viable teams, and then you can mix and match them. It's not like EDG the other night where they were in a great spot playing LGD, but you could only like put them with 2 teams. So that does help lower the ownership even on Victory 5. Yeah, no, I agree. Absolutely. DRX LNG. Yeah, I mean, look, when it comes, so if you're going to do DRX LNG, I almost feel like you do something like this. You get the light captain, you got Tarzan, you play Liv Mo, and grab like a T1. Can't do it. 50, okay, 5100. What can we do? Maybe go with like a rare atom. I mean, are you getting too cute at that point is kind of the thing. Sorry. I gotcha. I don't know. There's like at this point, does rare atom really give you a higher team slot? Probably not. I think you just go with the team slot at that point. I guess you can't. You have to do the other one like this. Oh, you need 2 teams. Well, okay. So these solo casts are a little bit shorter. So let's recap this, and we'll hop into a couple of the other leagues and just kind of run through the thoughts on those. Victory 5 is probably the highest scoring team on the slate. I think T1 is a step below it. You're going to pair it with OMG, RA, TS, LNG. Take your pick. If I had to pick, I think RA wins, but OMG scores better than RA if they win. I like playing LNG. I don't think that they're going to be owned at all, and this could be just kind of a statement prove-it game, and we've seen top just be bad. I don't think that DRX or Sandbox end up in the optimal. I'm not ruling them out. I never would tell anybody to rule out a team. That's not my gig anymore. It used to be, not anymore. We learned our lesson. Play fucking KT if you want. I probably not, but you can. So I think T1 has a good shot at being the highest scoring team too. But I do think we wake up tomorrow morning and it's like a Victory 5 RA, Victory 5 OMG, or like a Victory 5 Top Esports. One of those 3 ends up being the kind of the optimal combo. It just is what it is. It may not work out that way, but that's kind of my initial feeling. Isn't Top? Yes, Top is on a 5-game winning streak, and they're against good teams. But sometimes you got to zig when they zag, man, and that's why I'm calling LNG as the winner tonight. Not saying that that's what's going to happen, but that's what I think. Let's see. Let's take a look at the LEC. So again, Cash, those sport captains, one of those favorites. That's kind of where we want to go. We got LEC Super Week. Let's take a look at who's playing tomorrow and what it means. See if there's any spots that we want to attack in that. SK Misfits. I venture to guess that that's going to be one of the higher scoring games. SK doesn't give up a lot of deaths in their losses, but Misfits have been a team that you just want to stack in fantasy. Why stop now? It's the last game of the year. I think you play Misfits and you play it pretty confidently. My concern with Vitality and the Australias is that I don't know if they're going to play like fast and loose. I think that you want to play a safe macro game, not take a lot of chances, at least if you're Vitality, and probably not something that's going to work out so well for fantasy. BDS Mad Lions, it's the same thing, man. I wish Mad Lions were eliminated because this would be a game that you absolutely want to target, but Mad Lions needs this game. But what's the deal? I don't know if anybody knows. So If Vitality win before it, then Mad Lions is eliminated, right? So maybe that's what you do. Maybe you play both sides of this game. Bellman, maybe you game stack this one. Maybe I game stack this one, because what's going to happen is if Vitality beats Astralis, this game's not going to mean anything. It means absolutely nothing at that point. And it could be a pretty skirmish heavy. It could be a wild game. It could be a for fun game. And Mad might be super disappointed at that point. So that might be the spot to kind of attack. And then when we're looking at Fnatic, they need to win. XL's, it really doesn't matter for XL, right? I mean, I think they're in 5-6. That doesn't change anything. Yeah, this could be another fast and loose game too. I think the other one that you kind of target and where most of my exposure is going to be is in this game right here, assuming that they win, and then hoping that somehow like XL beats Fnatic. And if XL beats Fnatic, well, I don't know what the tiebreakers are, because I was hoping that this game too would be a meaningless game, but I think it is going to be playing for the first seed. So maybe not target that, but let's go with Mad Lions and BDS as the number one stack for the LEC. Let's get some comments here. Are they just now finding their groove? Yeah, maybe they are. Look, Mark maybe is a calming factor in the bot lane, and maybe that works. Or maybe they've just been lucky as fuck. Absolutely. I think that's completely reasonable. Are they finally playing like top esports? No, I mean, not like traditionally what we thought of top esports. I don't think that they are. I don't necessarily think that TN will ever play like, what we had in the past. And, more so than the jungle question, the bot lane question. I was thinking about this the other day, just like what happened to Zoom, man? Like this guy used to be super good and just has not been able to put it together this year. Got benched for two different people at this point. And look, maybe LNG is better than this. Like that game's a coin flip. You can go either way. I wouldn't be surprised if I woke up and either of those teams had won that series. I do think it ends up being a 2-1, and there's a good chance that it's not that bloody of a series. So, maybe that's not the attractive place. Maybe you're looking at T1 and Victory 5, and you're just mixing and matching with OMG and RA. That might be a strategy too. So I wouldn't hate that. No more Astralis. Well, look, there's only one more game, Gugs. Just one more. That's it. LNG finally got a dub after their losing streak. It was ugly. They just didn't respect TT. Yeah, I mean, that's what you're going to get in some of these games. So that's the concern, is that they're just not sharp right now, and Top wants it more. I don't know. Tess is the chalky dog tonight. Yeah, I mean, I think OMG's right there too. So you're thinking that Tess, well, yeah, no, I think you're right. So they're like what? Like they're like JDG of the other day. So maybe that means we play. They're like anyone's legend last night. So okay, maybe we play top esports. Maybe that's what we do, because that shit has been hitting left and right. Are they optimal? I mean, look, if Tess wins, I don't know even if top wins. So here, and this is the problem with them. If they're going to be 25 to 30%, maybe even higher because of where they're priced. Just look at what anyone's legend was last night. They might not be an optimal play. They're obviously not an optimal play, but they might not be in the optimal lineup. They can get out of this game, in 80s and 90s. And this game right here with OMG and RA, the winner could easily score over 100 points. The winner of this game could end up in the optimal. Tess could 2-0 and not be optimal. Tess 2-1s and probably isn't optimal. One of these other, whoever comes out of this game has a very good chance of doing it and superseding them, and especially at lower ownership, I'd probably want to take my hand and risk that. Yeah, I think so. I think people would rather play OMG than RA. RA has never been a team that people have liked playing, wanted to play, and rightfully so. RA, in past years was not a team that got a ton of kills. And even in this year, I know that this is missing a couple games, but you can see that they're not a particularly bloody team at 16.45. Let me look up the updated number on that for us. Give me a second here. Let me look at that updated number for RA. Kills per win, 16. Deaths per loss, 20 for OMG, so 18-ish. What did we have them projected? So like it's kind of an 18 for an average projection. So yeah, 36. Just looking at these, in a win, they score very well. So, you know what I say though? LNG always finds a way to make themselves optimal. Whether they win 2-0, whether they win 2-1, whether they lose 1-2, they somehow find their way into the optimal lineup. So don't take that for what it's worth. It's obviously worth nothing. But let's see. Closing this out, let's take a look at the LCS. And if you have any questions about the other slates or something that you want me to talk over or go over, drop it in the chat here. I have no problem doing that. LCS for tomorrow, again, this is completely pricing independent. Immortals versus Team Liquid. I think Team Liquid crushes that game. I have a hard time going to Immortals. They've had a couple good games. They've looked like a team that, maybe had figured out who they were or what they wanted to do. But it looks like they lost it, and Team Liquid just kind of is firing on all cylinders. CLG and 100 Thieves. Now, this is an interesting one. Both of these are coming off of losses where, CLG didn't look particularly good, but they looked a little bit more reserved than they typically do. They didn't make some of the bad plays initially that they normally do. They still did. It just took them longer to get there and actually make those mistakes. And I think that they can beat 100 Thieves. I just don't think that they will. 100 Thieves needs this win coming off, and they didn't look terrible today. They just lost a couple of fights late, and the last fight didn't look so well. They were just outclassed. They have those same fights against CLG. They have those same situations against CLG. They're probably coming out ahead 60 to 65% of the time, maybe more. So I don't have a problem, but maybe I just need to stop betting CLG and just like cross them out. I can't quit it. It's a problem at this point. EGC9. I think people will play EG. I don't know if it's right. C9 just looks like they're firing on all cylinders, but so does EG at this point. They seem to have kind of found their way. That's going to be a game that, if you want to play it in like winner take alls, I think that game is not going to be highly exposed because people don't like playing those coin flip games. But people are going to be all over both sides of this in GPPs. So I think C9 wins. FlyQuest versus Dignitas. I think FlyQuest is the better team right now. Dignitas they didn't impress me today. They do know who they are. And so, if they're drafting around a specific play style and then they're implementing that play style, that's a positive sign. But FlyQuest seems to know who they are, likes to play together. They looked good today against TSM. I mean, it's TSM, right? So I don't know. Take that for what it's worth. I think TSM wins tomorrow. I think that's the dog against Golden Guardians. I bet you a lot of people still go to Golden Guardians. I have no idea what the pricing looks like on that slate, but I'm going to back TSM. I'm going to go back to it. I'm going to be playing TSM. I'm going to be playing CLG, and I'm just going to hope that some of my more chalkier cash lineups end up hitting. Who's more owned, OMG or DRX? I am going to tell you it is OMG by a mile. And it could be a small mile. But OMG, 100%. Like I can't see a world where DRX is over or owned more than OMG. Are RA really better than OMG? Well, by most metrics, yeah. I mean, RA is not super flashy, but I'll give you this. The goal difference at 10 minutes, they're ranked 2. OMG's 13. 15, 4, and 13. At 20, it's 3 versus 11. Their kill agnostic GPM is, leaps and bounds better. There is not a stat, actually, that OMG is better at until you get into Herald and Baron control, which is important. I mean, that's kind of the key. Baron control is important. If you can get that first Baron and you're doing it a lot more than your opponent, even if you're slightly behind, that's going to jettison you up. OMG is a good team fighting team. I don't necessarily think RA is wonderful. So it just, is RA going to be able to get enough of an advantage? Will OMG be able to get a lead? And if they get the lead, will they be able to protect it and not throw it away doing stupid stuff? The more I think about this, the more I kind of like OMG in this matchup, despite everything that all the statistics say. So, yeah, I don't know. Probably didn't answer your question, though. Maybe a Canadian mile. I think, aren't those lower or longer? Like they're kilometers? So, I don't know. Some things are better in Canada, but certainly not the bacon. But that's it. All right. So, we went over every one of the slates a little bit more quickly on the two Western slate. The Eastern slate kicks off in just about 4 hours here. So if you have any other questions about that, concerns, comments, or just want to talk about it, I'll be in the Discord on and off. I'm trying to stay up and watch this. I've just got a morning engagement I got to get to, so I can't be staying up till 5, 6 in the morning again. Just probably catch that first series. So bacon is 100% better in Canada. It's not true. It's absolutely not true. 1.6 kilometers to a mile. Okay, sure. I believe you. But that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. If you haven't, go ahead and sub to the channel, like the video, pop over into the esports department Discord. It's free. If you're not a member over there, you just go to the website, go to the Discord, pop in. And at the end of the day, it's GTTW. Raise to the winners.